In the small towns of Alamance County, North Carolina, she was known as a sweet Christian lady who loved to cook. Her banana pudding was famous. Her neighbors trusted her. Her men adored her. And one by one, they stopped breathing. This is her crime. Blanche Taylor Moore was born Blanche Kaiser in Concord, North Carolina, on February 17, 1933. She grew up the daughter of a self-styled Baptist minister, a man who drank heavily between sermons, and she later claimed forced her into prostitution to pay his gambling debts. She married young to escape the abuse. She found God. She found community. She became the kind of woman people described as a pillar of her church. But something had curdled beneath the surface of that sweet southern smile long before anyone thought to look. In May 1952, Blanche married James Napoleon Taylor, a veteran and furniture restorer. They had 2 children together. James Taylor died in 1971. His death was recorded as a heart attack. Nobody questioned it. Nobody exhumed the body. Nobody looked twice at the grieving widow who had already moved on to the next man in her life. By 1979, Blanche was in a relationship with Raymond Reed, a co-worker from her years at Kroger supermarket in Burlington. In 1986, Reed developed what was initially diagnosed as shingles. He was hospitalized in April and died on October 7th. Doctors recorded the cause of death as Guillain-Barré syndrome. It is a cruel irony that Guillain-Barré syndrome presents almost identically to arsenic poisoning. The same nerve damage, the same deterioration, the same agonizing end. Intensive care nurses would later tell the court they watched Blanche spoon-feed banana pudding to Reed in the days before he died. Nobody connected those dots. Not yet. With Reed barely in the ground, Blanche began a new relationship, this time with a man of God. On Easter Sunday, she met Reverend Dwight Moore, the divorced pastor of the Carolina United Church of Christ in rural Alamance County. The two began meeting for meals. They planned to marry. And so the pattern continued. While she was dating Dwight, she asked him to procure some arsenic-based ant killer. He thought nothing of it. He was in love. On April 19, 1989, the couple were married and honeymooned over a long weekend in New Jersey. They returned on a Monday. On Wednesday, Reverend Moore collapsed ill after eating a chicken sandwich. What followed was weeks of deterioration so severe that doctors did not expect him to survive. Doctors at the University of North Carolina eventually found he had 20 times the lethal dose of arsenic in his system, the most arsenic ever found in a living patient in the hospital's history. But Reverend Dwight Moore had a particularly strong constitution. He survived. He was the lucky one. The discovery of arsenic in Dwight Moore's system triggered an investigation that would reach back decades. Autopsies revealed a new cause of death for 2 of the 5 bodies exhumed: Reed, whose arsenic level was 30 times higher than normal, and James Taylor, her first husband, whose 1971 death from an apparent heart attack was the result of an arsenic level 60 times higher than normal. Authorities began to wonder just how many people in Blanche's life had died of unusual circumstances. They obtained court orders on the medical records of 22 people. The sweet Christian lady with the famous banana pudding had left a trail of bodies across North Carolina spanning nearly 2 decades. The weapon was an odorless, colorless, arsenic-based ant killer called anti-ant. She had been secretly pouring it into food and drinks and feeding it to her victims. CBC News. No smell, no taste, no visible trace. Just a slow and agonizing deterioration that doctors repeatedly misdiagnosed, until a pastor collapsed 3 days after his honeymoon, and the truth finally had nowhere left to hide. Before her trial began, Blanche's attorney presented a handwritten confession from a man named Garvin Thomas, claiming he had poisoned the men in her life because he was in love with her. After obtaining numerous samples of her handwriting, the State Bureau of Investigation proved that Blanche had written the note herself. Even facing death row, she was still constructing another story, still trying to redirect the gaze of investigators onto anyone but herself. Blanche Taylor Moore was tried capitally in October 1990 for the first-degree murder of Raymond Reed. She was found guilty as charged. Following sentencing proceedings, the jury recommended she be sentenced to death. Judgment of death was entered on November 16, 1990. The prosecution had lined up 54 witnesses. The lead prosecutor described Reed's suffering with such detail that she twice broke down in court, telling the jury that Raymond Reed lay flat on his back in Baptist Hospital with bed sores, completely unable to move, tears in his eyes on the days the woman who was destroying him did not come to visit. Blanche Taylor Moore is housed at the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women in Raleigh. She is one of only 2 women currently on death row in the state. North Carolina has not executed a prisoner since 2006. At 91 years old, it is widely assumed Blanche Taylor Moore will die in prison before the state ever carries out her sentence. The woman who served arsenic in banana pudding and called herself a Christian sits in a cell in Raleigh, the oldest woman on death row in the United States. James Napoleon Taylor, he was 45. Raymond Carlton Reed, he was 59. The men she poisoned are long buried. Their families carry what she did to them every single day.